was the third or fourth or fifth page in which she says in a few minutes she will be raped, and then she'll forget. So therefore I thought this in cinema could be something very interesting to work upon. And all of a sudden, when I finished the novel, I continued the narration was very difficult. I continue to think it was very difficult because it's very literary, but there was a challenge to manage to achieve it. I gave it to Judith. She thought the same. We got in touch with the author. We managed to get her permission to write the script, because what was clear in my mind also is that it was a project in where you could take to the narration to a producer. It was necessary for at least you needed a first draft of a script to see how you would approach it and what we were going to do as of the story. And that's how the process started, the writing of the final writing, and then the final rewriting of the script to look for production, and so on and so forth. Second question, why did we decide? Well, it had been a long time that Jordi and I wanted to work together, but obviously the fact, co-directing a film with two people who already have previous career, and we've got our own language, well, it did bring about certain difficulties. We had to find the ideal project. When we read the story and his screenplay, in the part of the past and the present had to be clearly differentiated, and they asked, almost screaming, to help each other, both sides, to promote or to give more power to each of those periods of time. We needed to use two different types of languages. We thought it was an ideal situation for the first time to co-direct, because we were able to make a film jointly, a film in which both of us, who've got very similar tastes and similar references, we could work throughout the entire film together, but at the same time respecting that the first part would have the language of one of us and the second the language of the other. So therefore we wanted this to not be bad for the film, or nothing imposed, nothing which is unjustified. No, all the contrary. We wanted to contribute, to help, to improve the joint narrative of the film, and that's why there are two parts in the film, clearly differentiated. Hi, good morning. I would like to ask two questions. One, in the first part, the voice off camera, were you prepared to do it all the time with voice on off, or were you going to do it throughout the entire film? And then the attack that Elisa has, was that improvised or was that well choreographed beforehand? As regards to the voice off camera in the first part of the film, we never addressed exclusively to have a voice off camera, only voice off camera, but however, apart from specific phrases and determined phrases, like for example the one with the bracelet, that wasn't written in any dialogue. They're saying the script, the text was on a voice off camera, so therefore the actors, what we did was, as of the text for the voice off camera, we wanted to work absolutely improvised during the shooting of the film. Their dialogues, a lot of them are improvised, so therefore in any case what is true is that given the result of this improvisation and the good performance, so to speak, of the actors, a lot of the voice on off that was written in the script has disappeared, and we've kept the absolute improvisation of the actors. The second part was much more choreographed or prepared. There was no improvisation. What there was very, very intensive work that Aina carried out. We want to thank her very much, because the truth is she really went the extra yard. And that 15 minutes of her remembering, and that psychotic outbreak that Elisa has or undergoes, there was quite intensive work by her with us, and then also during the shoot, but we knew exactly and perfectly well what we were seeking, and the difficulty was to achieve it, because we were quite aware that it was a scene which was very difficult to perform. It was a very complicated moment, and that's why we decided for her to do it, because I'd already worked before 53 Days of Winter, and I knew what Aina could convey. And nevertheless, having said that, she surprised us all. Well, I thank Judith's word. The truth is, we did. We rehearsed a lot to get this far, and to Elisa's explosion at that moment when she explodes. I also prepared myself before the rehearsal. I prepared the character in order to address this moment of horror and terror when she remembers what happened 14 years beforehand. And thanks to that, to be able to go through that terror, she re-emerges. Going through the terror, she re-emerges. There was a lot of prior work done in order to achieve this in the scenes. I think Hans Richter, who's also here, I don't know, Hans Richter, yes, I did. Yes, I didn't hear you saying, yes, Hans Richter is here, of course. What draws my attention, and this is why I ask, how the so-called rape, I say so-called rape or alleged rape, I don't know whether you do this to create suspense, and there's very little, but we don't know whether the girl has been raped, has been touched, or what has been done to her. At the end of the day, whether it's the intention, her intention or invention of hers, despite the fact that I have to congratulate you on the symbolism with the swing. But at the end, you want to say that we have to tell what you've said, what's happened to you as therapy in order to be able to forget it? I think that it doesn't matter what happened to her. At no time do I address it. The girl invents what happened to her. Obviously, there's been abuse there. What's the level of that abuse? The truth is, it doesn't matter. For a 10-year-old child, as Elisa has at the time in the film, any situation, violent situation at a sexual level by an adult is a rape, a 100% rape. Talking to people that have occurred this to them, who have been abused as children and they've forgotten them. There have been cases of one extreme, of different extremes. For a smart childhood is a moment in one should feel secure. One has to, which is a phrase that Lolita says in her book. But obviously Elisa has been violated or raped. The truth is, yes, obviously I think it's very important. I'm not too sure to show it or to tell it, but I think that Elisa needed to talk to her father. Her father was there. He was in front. Whenever in front of what happened there. And it's very important for her to go through the process of remembering and to confront the problem face to face. And I think that to resolve problems, sometimes what we've got to do is to confront them face to face and not just go tiptoe over them. And I think that in this sense, I believe what Elisa does is this, that is, she reinvents her life to a certain extent after this horrible and tremendous memory. The film wasn't made about a rape. It was a film about remembering, and also, we in no moment, we didn't even think to get into the morbid situation of a child being raped. So therefore, obviously, you have to understand the film from that perspective. Otherwise, it will be another film. Hi, I would like to ask you, bearing in mind that Claudia is underage, how did you deal with these issues which are so delicate as regards to her? Because now we're talking about them very openly. I'm a father, and it concerns me to a certain extent. And another question is, as regards the choice of shooting it in the Catalan language, I suppose that you waged in favor of using Catalan to open yourselves to the international market, but do you believe might limit the dissemination or distribution of the film nationally? As for regards to the first question, Claudia's parents are around here, by the way. So therefore, obviously, I remember, and we were talking about it yesterday, if I recall, when the first interview with Claudia's parents, we said the following. We said, hey, listen, have you read the script? Yes. Do you think that your daughter, when we stop shooting the film, she'll be able to see it? And they said yes. And this is what we believed. They say, obviously, Claudia has seen the film without any type of problem, and you've seen the film. I know it quite obviously. But I think I remember it's for over 13s. But I think that any person, apart from the fact that you may understand it more or less, nevertheless, but there's nothing absolutely explicit on the film for her not to do it. That's what we were talking about beforehand. That is to say, we didn't even think at any time to make a film which is a morbid film on the issue of rape. As we got to the second question, in my two previous films, I shot them in Spanish, and I felt like making a film in Catalan because it's my language. It's a language that I speak with my partner, with my children, and with my parents. And so therefore I felt like making a film in my own language. But I think that the issue of language in cinema, in art in general, shouldn't have any importance at all. That is to say, there may be films in Catalan, in English, Spanish, in Chechen. The important thing is what we tell is the story. And in this case, it was in Catalan, and another one I might do in Spanish, and another one will be in Basque, depending upon the films that you might see. And each film has to have the language that corresponds to it, and I hope, and I would like at least, that this shouldn't mean any problem for its distribution. I would like it very much to think this way, because this would truly mean that we're taking steps forward. But in this country we've got the mania of doubling things. It'll be very difficult to take steps forward in this sense. And in this, and I want to thank the distributor and the producer of the film, which will be screened for the first time in the original version and subtitled in Spanish. I want to thank the producer, but it would be great that all films should be able to see in original version and subtitled, because it's a way of respecting our work and the actors' work. Hi, at the back here. I would like to ask you both things. The first part, for the duration, that is, the first part opens up a world that we don't know, which is a world of silence. How you can live, how kids live like that in silence quite often. It was quite impressive. It was almost incredible that could be possible. And you've given it much more importance to verbalizing and to follow Claudia in her life as a child in silence, and also to the healing process as well. Why? No, I don't think that's the case. That is to say, if we count the minutes which are dedicated to the first half, and by the way, the first part is not the black and white part of all the black and white, because the truth is the second part starts just after the dream, when the character of Elisa is already an adolescent and she's grown up. So therefore the film is practically at about 50%, 50-50. The only thing that happens is when we enter into Elisa, who's an adolescent who goes to the university and so on, it continues to be in black and white. But I think that in this aspect it's quite balanced. I don't think that there's too much of the first part being more explained in black and white, or we go more further in depth in the first part or in comparison to the second part of the film. The truth is, and we talked about this before, the two languages are absolutely different in the way they're shown in the film. Hi. Good morning. To the director, congratulations. The two actresses who look, it's horrible for the spectators, for the viewers, because the audience, the truth is you managed in the casting quite a lot of similarity between, it's a question for you and then for one of the, One of the two actresses. Well, the younger the girl. Had you addressed psychologists in the cases of had you talked to psychologists as regards to rape cases? No. Well, let's see. The thing is, the script of a film stems from a story in which there was already a lot of prior documentation that Lolita Bosch had carried out. She knew the subject matter. She had interviewed people and people from associations, because there's more than one association. And even before making the film, we'd read a couple of articles that talked about associations that talk about people who've been raped, who have forgotten, not about people who have suffered abuse when they're children, but they've suffered abuse and then they've forgotten and they've remembered it much later when they're adults or after a couple of years. So therefore, this is a case that occurs much more often than what we might think. And therefore, there was quite a lot of prior documentation and research that had been carried out, and Aina had also talked to people from these associations. And the truth is, we did research it, but not us, not us ourselves, because it would already appeared in the novel. I didn't know what you want to ask Claudia. To concentrate on this role, was it very difficult for you with Elisa K? Did you rehearse a lot with the elder Elisa K? No, the only thing that I wanted to do was think what a little girl would do when that happened to her, how she'd feel, and whether she'd forget about it, what feelings would she have. And I never thought how I would have reacted, but how a person who, the truth is, something had happened to them, that it would have been so difficult, and to think that it was a friend of his father that did this to her, and having a father in France. So therefore, that's what I did. Hi, over here. Two questions. The first, there I am. It's related to what your colleague said, that is to say, whether you talk to psychologists and you say that Aina was asking, had some interviews with people in the associations. What did you ask when you talked to the women that you talked about vis-a-vis this subject? What did you want to use for your character, which might have been important to show, and then for the directors as well, with that work of reading the novel and to extract material there for the script? And you said this is something that had to be in the script and has to be shown. That's my first question. And the second, at the end, with that look at the end, what do you want to show in the screen? Well, I personally know some people that have gone through to have being sexually abused when they're young, and so therefore I had some personal information. And then I spoke to the Becky Bernadette Foundation, which is focused upon sexual abuse in the family, and Vicky helped me to understand silence, which is something that surprises us all at the beginning. They say, how can you be in silence for 14 years or more? And there are people that don't even communicate it, and then all of a sudden you remember it. And why do you remember it? And I think that in Elisa K, it's still open, because at the end, you don't know why you remember. You don't remember for something specific, or you remember because of the smell of the coffee. Yes. And I think that Elisa's prepared to remember, that she wasn't prepared to, and she quite wisely forgotten, and then there's a moment she's prepared to, and she decides to remember in a very unconsciously. At that final look at the camera, there's a final phrase in the book of Lolita that we all liked very much. And when I say everyone, when we read, even the actors, they said, oh, this sentence has to appear. I didn't want to go at any time to go back. At the end of the first half, we decided that we're not going to go back to use the narrator, the voice on off. But this phrase, or that paragraph, she says, what Elisa thinks is her own, what you, the reader or the viewer, thinks is your thing. What has to be quite clear is that childhood is a place where one should feel secure and safe. And this look at the camera and to the audience is to involve the audience and to say to the audience, you think, what you think is up to you, and what we were saying before, that is, we should address, say, the situations and grab the bull by the horns face to face. That's what I'm saying. I would like to know whether the doubt at the end, because Elisa K says to her father, you knew something, and then they talk about courage and Martin Luther King. Did you address that doubt that the father, being 1 meter away from her daughter when she's raped or whatever you want to call it, and he's within the, because he's a friend, you mean he held it back and didn't say anything? I think that Elisa doubts throughout the entire process after having vomited out everything that she'd gone through. She goes through a process of fear, absolute fear, and then doubt, and to address the fact whether her father was aware or not aware, and then she makes a decision. I think that what's left open to the audience. It seems to me, he can ratify this. I don't remember that I've ever talked with Hans as regards to the character of whether the truth is he was asleep or not asleep, whether he knew it or knew it. We never even addressed that issue, no. There was something thinking about this character as an actor, I think the father is he's a person who represents all of us, because rape in day-to-day life is something that doesn't occur. It happens on the news. It doesn't happen with the girl next door. It never happens to your daughter. These are things that we've got in our mind, and we all know. We know that it's something very, very powerful and very strong, but what happens is that it's a decision. But these things go quickly into one's subconscious. You notice a no, and you go, oh no, and you say it can't be. And what happens with the parents, there's a doubt. There's something in air, something's not going right, something's not. But there's a mechanism that says, no. Not even, no, he's my friend. This couldn't have happened. The process of the father in that scene is when, just with a look of his daughter and with one sentence, all of a sudden, everything becomes conscious, and he says, he knew it, but he didn't want to know it. And for me, the approach of that moment at the end is all this, and the whole subject matter has this, when there's screams in the next door flat, nothing has happened. That's what you think. That's why I always think. But that's a bit general, but there's a mechanism which makes us function that way, makes us deny it, and that's the reference of Martin Luther King. The film starts with the teacher who says, we're not going to read today, I'm going to talk to you about who Martin Luther King was. That class scene was on the script, and then we edited it out. But the reference to Martin Luther King is that for Elisa, the figure of Martin Luther King has always been like the reference of a courageous man, a man who confronted things, something that his father didn't do. His father said, no, I didn't remember. She may think that he remembered, but what's quite clear in Elisa's mind is that her father wasn't courageous enough to confront the problem of seeing his daughter as he saw her quiet in silence, that she didn't want to go into the jewelry store. He wasn't courageous. He didn't confront it. He tiptoed over the problem, and that is why she refers to Martin Luther King. That for her, he's the reference of a courageous man who confronts things, something that you, Dad, didn't do. He doesn't blame him. He just remarks it. It's a therapy that Elisa has to do there at that time in that scene with her father. Hi. I haven't read the story. I would like to know whether the absence of names, the only name is Elisa's, because there's no Elisa K. and the teacher is Mr. S, and then the father, the mother, the brother. The film's called Elisa K. In the movie, as you remember, it's named several times. No, there's no any names in the novel either. In this case, it's something that I like very much because I've always thought that names in films are absurd. They make no sense. Well, sometimes they do. But in general, you see a film without a name, you understand it exactly the same. If you see it with a name, you don't remember the name of the character. And that happens to me, at least, when I leave a movie. I don't remember the names of the people, the actors are portrayed. The teacher helps her like a father, and she realizes how the teacher has helped her, so what the teacher means for her at that time. And the second question is your references from a cinematographic point of view for make this film. It reminds me at the end, there's certain pauses to Haneke's type of cinematography, or no, I don't know. Haneke, I don't think so. Well, I like Haneke very much, but in any case, when we were shooting the film, La Cinta Blanca was premiered. The people that went to see it, they said, oh, it's a lot like yours, oof. The first part, but not the second part. Someone in TV3 said something that made us laugh. He said, it's as if that La Cinta Blanca, the white ribbon, turned into the Antichrist. Well, there are two directors that we like very much, but the references can stem from other places. There are always references of other directors, directors you like, undoubtedly, but we could go even further than this and talk about Dreyer, Besson, Bergman, of directors that we love and who are always there. But our reference, in our case, this came more from the world of painting, perhaps. In the case of the first half, or the first part, we were inspired upon Hammershøi's paintings. In the case of the second part, we worked a lot with the paintings of Lucian Freud and Egon Schiele, because they represent the decomposition or the breaking apart of a human being for the second part, which we like very much. And then the Lucian Freud and the color of these paintings as well, and the tones and the colors in some of the frames. And I think that Hammershøi, through the windows and the doors, is a clear reference as well. The fact that you're always listening what you don't see in this first, and then the second, which is the one you're interested in, you don't hear anything at all. So therefore, the glasses in the middle, for example, it's work that stemmed more from painting than from directors or direct references to director. Haneke we like very much, not especially the White Ribbon or La Cinta Blanca. The process knows. The teacher knows that something very serious has happened to her, but he's intuitive. The mother as well has a certain amount of intuition. Well, we don't know. This is something that I think that we've left it quite open. A lot of things for the audience to decide. It's a film in which the audience has to get involved. And for me, when I saw it, when they allow me to do this with a film, to get involved and to make some decisions upon what the characters is doing, this is something that I'm very thankful for when I see a movie. And this is something I think that's quite good that we've left it open so that everyone can see it in their own way. Thank you. Hi. Here with the camera, I would like to ask Lydia precisely the character of the mother, because on the contrary of the character of the father, who doesn't even confront the problem, the mother does try to get involved, but she finds a complete void from the daughter. How do you construct this character who tries to find out and solve what has happened and find out what's happened, but she can't? Well, I would agree with what Hans says. I think the parents, the family, were like society. They say, we don't want to know. Many things are happening, but the truth is, we leave them to one side and sidestep them. It's very difficult. It's much more comfortable to say, well, perhaps this isn't that bad. But I think that the difference with the mother's character is that the mother is absorbed by custom and routines. Mothers are the people there on the day-to-day with with preparing dinners and breakfasts, and routine overcomes us. I think the character of the mother especially explains herself that way. That's vis-a-vis the silence of the daughter, that she can't, despite trying her utmost to do so, and talking to the teacher, you end up accepting it in your day-to-day routine, and you always think time will put things in place, and that's why it's so important. Time doesn't put things in place, and even less so these types of things, but the moment has to arrive for the things to be put into place.
¿Más preguntas, por favor?
Any further questions? In fact, Chris Marker, this has to do with injuries and time. Everybody thinks that injuries are cured by time, and time cures everything but injuries.
Sí, ahí adelante.
Porque estaba pensando.
I was thinking that with stories of this nature, which are so brutal for someone who experiences this, from a movie standpoint, it's difficult to not fall into a certain victimism of the character, and even more so being a woman, which is usually the case. How do you address this issue? How did you think about the character that I don't think that you're trying to deal with the fact that she's a victim? Well, we see that she's afraid and she's got this trauma for the rest of her life. How you address that issue?
Bueno, es que yo creo.
Well, I think that Elisa, precisely what she does is an act of absolute courage. That's what she. That's to say, she puts fear in front of her, and she turns it into courage, in order to continue to live, or to go on living. Well, I think that what happens at the beginning is absolute terror, and then she realizes she's a person that she didn't know she was, and she's been injured, and it is part of her childhood has been injured. And she's got to draw that out so that her childhood can recover its place, because quite probably she was happy in other moments of her childhood, albeit that happened to her. I don't know. I think we talked a lot about the character, and I think that we did. It was almost like fine detail work, especially in that when there's the psychotic outbreak that she goes, and that's where she talks to herself at a moment. She talks to herself when she's a child, and she injures herself, and I saw it to feel a physical pain that will overcome the emotional pain. So therefore we intellectualize everything so as to forget it and then feel it. But it's very complicated to explain an emotional work. It's very difficult to put it into words. Something that you've done intuitively. What's quite clear in my mind, as I worked with Judith and I already knew who Jodie was, I trusted them completely. And I said, well, don't worry, I'll go. You tell me to stop when I have to stop. And that's the way, and the work was quite free in the way we carried it out.
¿Hay alguna pregunta más?
Any further questions? If such is the case, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.